I told you when Prannoy showed us by examples and when he was training us. And I had studied mass communication, but I joined Wipro. So then they sent us these Mojo phones. So it was just a tiny little box like this with a phone inside. And you could go live with it. You could literally. I think when I joined NDTV, television journalism, I'll focus on TV journalism, he is a star anchor. A star anchor is somebody who gets attention, who gets viewers. And the name Fight Night was definitely his choice because he loves boxing. This young woman has died. The family will be going through such trauma. Would they really want cameras there recording everything and asking questions? I was with NDTV in the very early days. The style he had, which he taught us both by example and also by telling us to be polite, to be calm. Then NDTV and Doordarshan put out these election programs. Probably this honesty doesn't always pay. It's nice to be honest, and I don't regret being honest. The channels coming up. Two ways. One, the competition made television journalism take some shortcuts. He has a huge following. He has people who really listen to what he says, who enjoy his style, and he's kept going. Good journalist needs the courage to tell the truth, patience to listen to the story in order to get all the details out, maybe looking into the camera. But this is my observation. It is the way I'm observing the world around. And the camera is what brings the, as you know yourself, bad language or vulgarity or abuse. People are different. I think these protests managed to get across a point, managed to make the supremely powerful look at it and think. I think initially it was like, it'll dissipate, it'll go away. Instead of one team working together, it's sometimes become desk versus field.
Yeah.
The editorial versus the reporter. We have a political discussion if the ruling party is not there. Not in Karnataka. In Karnataka, we were very lucky that the BJP leaders would talk to me, from the chief minister, the ministers, they would talk to me. So very often it was the Karnataka BJP voice that was heard on NDTV, because journalism is a team thing. And one of the pictures, in fact, does show
the entire team of
all of us, the entire gang. I mean, whoever was there that day, the entire gang, talking of, just at the press club. These stories would not have been possible without the people in the team in Bangalore. So with the camera person on the field, it's so important because you're doing the story together. A good debate is one when people shout at each other and insult each other, which is very sad. That's not TV news. That is then performance. It is then a drama. It's not real TV news as I understand it. And this is my personal view and not one which many editors may agree with. I would personally like to be later with the news, but make sure I get it right.
Thank you very much for talking to Daily Salar. You graduated in BSc and you wanted to do MSc in zoology, but you ended up doing mass communication and you're a gold medalist. How this happened?
It is quite a shift in profession. Way back when I was studying, back in the last century, if you were a serious student, you were a science student. If you really wanted, and I was a very good girl and all that, so I studied science. Then I realized this is not for me. I took science because of zoology. I love animals, and I thought zoology would bring me close to animals. But really, all we ended up doing was dissection. In those days, we had actual dissection. So I felt very sad. But still, the plan was to do MSc zoology. Then I knew a friend who had done mass communication, and I'd always loved English and writing and communicating. So I thought, why not? It was really very random. It was an absolute chance.
After completing your master's, you got a job in ad agency. And when the offer was given by ad agency, you said them you're waiting for offer from Wipro, and you were so honest that you lost the job. And did Wipro work out for you?
Wipro did work out.
Being frank, you need to pay for that, being honest?
I think it was a bit naive of me at that stage. I was being honest. I was saying they gave me the job offer, and then I said, could I just wait a bit? I'm just waiting to hear from Wipro, which, because I was so young and this was my very first job and I was a little naive. Probably this honesty doesn't always pay. It's nice to be honest, and I don't regret being honest. But when they said, okay, we're taking back the offer, it really felt terrible. fortunately, Wipro did work out for me. That was my first job. And I was with Wipro for not quite a year, but I joined Wipro, and that was my first job then. So that I was lucky that something did work out, yes.
Did journalism choose you, or you had to choose journalism?
It was a mix, in the sense, like I said, I always liked writing and communicating. I liked to tell stories. So, and I had studied mass communication, but I joined Wipro, which was a corporate. Then after Wipro, I joined BPL, another corporate. So I seemed to be in that corporate track. My heart wasn't really in it. It didn't feel totally natural to me in many ways. Then Doordarshan advertised saying, we want journalists. And my father, Ramchandra Sharma, he said, apply for this. So I said, no, I can't. I'm settled. I've got this job. He said, you apply for this. He really kind of encouraged me, pushed me into trying. So it was a bit of a mix. I had chosen journalism to study, but I was in the corporate line. But then my father kind of gave me that push that was needed, and no regrets.
So how was the offer in Doordarshan? How did it work out for you?
Doordarshan was great. They had an ad in the paper, Make News with Doordarshan. And I think in those days, over 50,000 people applied for it. They just wanted a graduate degree and certain other qualifications. So I applied. There was a written test in what was then Madras. There were 2 interviews in Delhi with Bhaskar Ghosh, 2 interviews. And finally, it was brought down to about 52 people. And we joined. And it was wonderful because we had training at FTII in Pune, which was a marvelous experience because I love films as well. And then we had more training in Delhi, in New Delhi as well, with some foreign trainers. It was wonderful. I mean, and the first years in Doordarshan, it was a government organization. We had certain rules to follow. There were certain stories we could not do. There were certain ways we had to do the story.
There was no concept of breaking news.
There was.
There was?
There was.
Okay.
But I think we tended to bring it in. Like when there were political developments, we did break the news there. We did do stories like that. We did my husband Nandu did the Shivarasan story when he was surrounded in Konan Kunte. We did break news, but there were many limits into what we could do and how we could do it. But it was a great learning experience, and it was the only TV news channel at that time.
What first inspired you to become a journalist? Because you had a habit of love for writing, is that?
I think it was that. I think it was, I love communicating. Even when talking with people, talking with friends, I love to share ideas and to listen. I also like to listen and learn what the other person has to say, which is sometimes not always the case. Where, people love to talk, but they don't like to listen. I like to listen to the other person's story as well. So journalism fitted that beautifully. I could learn about people and what they were going through, and I could convey that and hopefully make a difference in people's lives.
How the doors of NDTV were open for you?
So that I was still with Doordarshan, and NDTV had, first I think Pranoy Roy back in 1984 had started doing live election with Doordarshan, and it was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, who is that? Who is that young man who was talking about psephology and swings and all that? It was a brand new thing. Then he started working with Doordarshan, because Doordarshan was the only TV channel then. NDTV and Doordarshan put out these election programs, and in Doordarshan kind of contributed the reporters. A slot
was given called News Track?
No, News Track was a separate private thing. This was just for the elections, a special programming. And Doordarshan deputed some of its reporters for this joint production with NDTV. And I was one of the reporters deputed. And it was nice. Working with NDTV was nice. They liked the way I was reporting. So later on, they offered me a full-time job.
So how was working with Pranoy Roy?
Oh, it was fabulous. It was really fabulous because, I mean, you've seen him, you've seen his work. The style he had, which he taught us both by example and also by telling us to be polite, to be calm. Like one of the tags was, you don't need to shout to be heard. There was a way of doing things, a very dignified way of doing things, that you could ask the tough questions without being rude, that you could get your point across without shouting, that you could have a debate that didn't involve insults. And he gave us the freedom to try. He didn't agree with everything, but the way they told us, it was very nice. And initially, especially when we were very young, they were so encouraging. Both he and Radhika Roy were so encouraging, they gave us confidence.
How has journalism changed since you joined NDTV, and how has journalism changed after you left NDTV?
Wow. Well, I think when I joined NDTV, television journalism. I'll focus on TV journalism. It was doing well. It was going up. Private TV news channels were just coming into the country. We were doing stories that we may not have been allowed to do on Doordarshan, and we were doing it in a way that we may not have been able to do. In the sense, we could criticize the government, we could ask questions. We could, even when doing the live, we could ask the politicians tough questions, which had never been done before. So it was a very good phase initially, because television is fabulous for India. It's the visuals you can get. It's such a visual medium. So it was really, really good at that stage. We were asking questions. We could hold people accountable. I think we really made a difference on the ground. But in the later years of NDTV, with other channels coming up, two ways. One, the competition made television journalism take some shortcuts. People would rush to get news ahead of the other channel, which may not always be true. And because of this competition, they would start doing stories in a way that was not respectful or respectable, like the death of Sushant Singh Rajput and the way they hounded the way they started doing stories because of competition. I think that's when the decline began to start. And after I've left NDTV, I think, if anything, the situation has got even more serious, because NDTV was one channel which would still speak truth to power, as they said, but it's changed. NDTV has also changed.
How did it feel to hold the NDTV mic?
It was wonderful, especially in the early days. It was a feeling of, yes, it was a channel which people wanted to join. It was a channel which was respected. It was a channel people watched and people trusted. So when you were part of NDTV, like when you walked into a press meet holding that mic, it felt good. It felt good to be part of this very professional team. It
was also a dream job of most of the journalism students to get into NDTV.
Yes, it was really an aspiration for them. It was, I think, I may be a little biased, of course, but it was, I think, one of the best channels for news in the country.
What is the biggest story you have covered which you still remember?
Oh, there were many, but the tsunami, the sorrow of the tsunami, the scale of the disaster, the scale of the people whose lives were turned upside down, and also the way people helped, the way they came out to help, even if they had nothing of their own. They would come and talk to the survivors and how they tried to help them. That was a huge story. The Veerappan story went on and on and on for years. That was very dramatic. That was a very big.
Yeah. Which story has changed you as a person?
Oh, that's interesting. As a person, I think again maybe the tsunami did, because we are all, just by virtue of being where we are, in a privileged position. And when you leave stories like the tsunami, where people have suffered and lost their homes and lost their loved ones, and then you just get back to your ordinary life, where you're safe, where you're fed, where you're warm, where everything is there for you, you begin to appreciate even more just how fortunate one is and how you shouldn't take it for granted. I think stories where, like the tsunami, other stories as well, where you see how people suffer and how they cope with it and how they come out of it, then you just realize that you have to be grateful for what you have.
Way back when you were working in NDTV, there was a show from Bangalore called Fight Night. How this concept started? Because that was one of the major shows which used to talk about the issues of Bengaluru. How this concept came up?
I loved doing Fight Night. It was really nice because even now most programs are out of Delhi. So it's a very Delhi-centric view. It's not necessarily the fault of the editors. They live there, they see the world view from Delhi, and the regions were not represented so much.
I'm talking about the execution. Because I've also worked for that, because I was a student and I used to bunk my classes and work with you guys.
Yes. Used to be there on the camera helping to set it all up and all that. Yes.
So how this concept came up, did Pranoy decide let us do it in an open field, let us create a set? Because including when late Dr. Abdul Kalam had come, the interview which happened in Bangalore.
Pranoy wanted very much to have something out of Bangalore. The name Fight Night was definitely his choice because he loves boxing. So the term Fight Night came definitely with Pranoy's thing. And I think the great thing about NDTV's production is that it's very flexible. Yeah. They could put up a show, of course, in a fancy studio with elaborate sets. They could do that. They could do it on the field. They could make a 2-camera shoot in a simple location look good whether it's with standees, whether it's with green screen, they could make it look good. So I think the production, they were really capable. It was a very capable production team.
What made you to cancel a story on a nurse from England who was trolled or targeted by a radio jockey? How did you convince Prannoy to cancel this story? What made you?
This was the story of the nurse who a radio station in the United Kingdom called up pretending that to find out details about the royal baby.
Yeah.
Catherine had just had a child, and she thought it was a legitimate thing, so she gave the answer. And then she was made a lot of fun of on the radio station. And she died by suicide, which was an absolute tragedy, an absolute personal tragedy. She was from Dakshin Kannada. She was from Karnataka. And it was a big story around the world. And of course, that India connection made it very important, very interesting for Indian channels. And it was reported. So when her body was brought back for the funeral, my Delhi newsroom asked me, please go to Mangalore and cover the story. And I felt it is a time of personal grief. We know that this young woman has died. The family will be going through such trauma. Would they really want cameras there recording everything and asking questions? I felt it was an intrusion on their grief. I felt it was not as if we could gain anything by it. Like, let us say you're showing suffering and then something happens. Yeah. If you're showing the suffering of a poor person or of a farmer and something happens as a result, they get help, then it is worth it to show what is going wrong. I didn't feel this would help in any way, to help society in any way or help the family in any way. I just felt it was not a decent thing to do. I always feel that if you want to decide for a reporter, would I like it if it was my family and cameras were there? You can then immediately understand. So I did mail out. I did mail. I said, I think we should just leave the family alone at this stage.
How did you convince him? Like, did he agree?
Oh, very easily. The newsroom had wanted this. They were making arrangements for the travel and everything. And I wrote saying these reasons that I told you. And Prannoy replied to that email saying, I agree. Let's just leave them alone. It was not a difficult thing to convince him.
Ma'am, who is a journalist according to you, and what are the roles of a journalist?
For me, a journalist is somebody who firstly listens, who wants to understand what the other person is saying, who wants to hear their story, to hear their point of view, and is ready to listen, even if it doesn't agree with their own private opinions or their own biases, but somebody who's ready to listen and learn from the person they're talking to, and is ready to convey what they have learned in an honest fashion. They have to be honest about what they're reporting. They should not put their own biases into it. There are many things which a good journalist needs. The courage to tell the truth, patience to listen to the story in order to get all the details out. Many, many different factors which a journalist needs to be able to convey the story honestly and properly, a sense of decency, a kind of moral code which you need to follow, which you need to know that you should tell the truth. And you should be able to take on people if they're doing wrong, even if they are powerful, even if you want access to them, even if you want favors from them. That is not the case. You have to be an independent journalist in the true sense of the term.
Can journalists, anchors, or newscasters can insult their panelist, the person who comes for the debate, or can they be biased? They target particular communities, insulting people, live show, maybe while in the interview also. Is it part of journalism? I
think it's very unfortunate if that happens. Like I told you, when Prannoy showed us by examples and when he was training us, we literally got notes before election saying, if there is let's have a debate, not an argument. There are politicians from different parties. It should be a debate, not an argument, because debate is when ideas come out. Argument is just insults. So I think that people should be treated with respect on television, even if you don't agree with them, even if you don't agree with their ideology or their politics. They should be treated with respect. If they say something wrong, if they say something hateful, you shouldn't let that go, because, yes, let us say, if I'm interviewing you and you say something terrible about a community or something, I should not just, yeah, he's my guest, let me not. I must call you out on it. I must tell that person what you said is wrong, what you can't talk like this. But you can still do it with dignity. You can still do it with grace. You can't insult the person. And to insult a person who's not even offended you because of your own biases, that is terribly wrong. That's terribly wrong.
But today, channel demands that because that's how the TRP comes.
They want shouting. A good debate is one when people shout at each other and insult each other, which is very sad. That's not TV news. That is then performance. It is then a drama. It's not real TV news as I understand it.
As a TV journalist, visuals play a very important role. So, what is the chemistry or the understanding between a journalist and a video journalist? How important it is?
Oh, it's hugely important. It's really, really important. Television journalism is definitely not a single person job. It's by definition teamwork. At every stage, from shooting on the field with the camera person, the person who's editing it, the engineers who are sending the story to Delhi or getting it on air, the anchor who's reading it. It's a huge team effort. It's an absolute team effort. The desk with whom you've coordinated the story. So with the camera person on the field, it's so important because you're doing the story together. It is not the reporter's story and the camera person is just by the way. It is your story. It is both your stories. And I was fortunate in NDTV to work with really good camera people. Towards the end, it was Kumar and Govind, whom you know also. And it was our story. We would discuss it. I'd say we'll need a BJP voice here, we'll need a Congress voice here. So then, because the city is so huge, I would go with one person to go and get one party. The camera person would go and conduct the interview and get the other. It was a team thing. It was a team effort. And we all wanted the best for the story. They would make an extra effort to get the great shots, to get the exclusive shots, because it was our story. And that is very important to remember. It's not the reporter's story and the camera person is by the way. It's a hugely important role. And you have to have that kind of working together.
What do you think people sitting in input desk and output desk, do you think they should have a field experience to understand the pain of a reporter? Because sitting in office, commanding stories, it's very easy. But you, as a journalist being on field, it's not that easy. Do you think someday they should also be trained to understand the pain of a journalist, the pain of a reporter, what it takes to cover a news story?
Ideally, yes. Because what is happening, especially of late, is that there's almost a divide. Instead of one team working together, it's sometimes become desk versus field.
Yeah.
The editorial versus the reporter. And sometimes demands are made of the reporter which are not reasonable. You've worked so much in a city like Bengaluru. If you're in IIM down in Banagata Road and you're suddenly asked to rush to Whitefield, it will take you 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You cannot be on air in half an hour.
True.
So that's just one basic example, that basic understanding. Or when you're on a political story and it's the politicians are sleeping in Vidhan Saudha and you're there until midnight. And then you're being asked for a 7 a.m. live. There is some understanding which should be there. It should be both ways there also, because the input desk has its own pressures. So ideally, if just at least for a little while, even reporters are on the desk for a while. Input can do some reporting, but even if reporters are on the desk for a while, they may also get a better understanding, because I may be focusing on my story from Karnataka, but they will also be dealing with stories from Maharashtra, Punjab, Assam, Manipur. They have their own pressures. So that mutual understanding should be there for both the field and the desk.
What do you think to become a good newscaster, news anchor? Do you think the person should be a good reporter first, or anybody can become anchor today?
I think an anchor needs to be a journalist first. And field experience will definitely help. I think that the best anchors you see are ones who not just have been in the field, but who still go to the field, who still go out, who still face the heat and the sun and the rain, who still try and get an interview, who still go to the person's house instead of sitting only in the studio. I think the ideal job is when you're both an anchor and a reporter. Because what does happen when you are only in the air-conditioned studio, you will be shielded from the difficulties of the field. When you've gone there and you've seen a flooded village and you've seen how people's homes are destroyed, you report it in a different way than if you're just talking about it from the studio. And when you're in a studio only, you don't necessarily get the voices of the people on the ground. You may read an election wrong. You may not understand a crisis. You may not, the recent protest in Delhi. You may not know what people are saying or feeling if you're not out there with them. You have to be part of it. You have to know what's going on to really be able to talk about a story properly. I think it's very important that anchors are not just anchors, but are also field persons. I think that's very important.
It's a very personal question. Can a journalist be an activist?
That is a very tricky question. It's a very tricky question indeed, because it's hard, because sometimes you know something is wrong and you want to do something about it. I think the activism in journalism is in doing a story on it, highlighting it.
But you can't be a part of that, right?
I think the journalist has to have a certain distance, but there are some times when you need to speak out, when you need to be on it, when you need to campaign for something, when you see injustices definitely being done. It's a very, very tricky balance. It's a very difficult, I think it's on a story by story basis. When you see something is terribly wrong, then maybe your journalism itself is a form of activism. If you keep on doing that story, if you keep on asking that person the hard questions.
That's my job. If there's a protest in Bangalore, my job is to go cover it. So why should I be part of it? That's an assignment for me. That's how I think.
Yes. There have been times when I have agreed with what the protest is going on, but I can't. I have to do the other point of view also. But the very fact you're choosing to cover that protest, like now some protests are blocked out, the very fact you're choosing to cover that protest will highlight it and maybe get the message across. But it's a very, very tricky issue, because we now have many people who are journalist activists, who are activist journalists. It's a very hard thing. You have to keep a distance, but you have to do what's right. It's a very tricky thing.
How has digital media changed reporting?
Oh, wow. It's really made a huge difference. First of all, the speed. It's out there now. I mean, like in the really old days, it was newspapers and you could file your story at 1 a.m. and it would make it the next day. Television made things faster because you had to get it ready for the 4 p.m. bulletin, the 3 p.m. bulletin. But digital now is everywhere. And you don't have to sit and watch your television. It's on your phone. You get the news immediately. So that put a huge pressure on the traditional TV media and on newspapers as well. They had to deliver something different. They had to deliver something more in depth or more beautifully produced, or they had to offer something more, because the news was right there in people's hands. It's changed it a lot, for the good and for the bad. It's a kind of mix.
You said digital is fast. Is speed more important than accuracy?
Never. Not for me.
Because that's a digital.
Never. It's, I personally, again, this is my personal view and not one which many editors may agree with. I would personally like to be later with the news, but make sure I get it right. Then jump the gun and say, this has happened. And later on be forced to retract or give, which is very different from the way the reality nowadays, when to be first to the news is often everything. So you hear sad things of somebody being killed by TV before they're actually dead. Fake news, there are many definitions of fake news, but when you're rushing to be first, often because of pressure from the desk, from the pressure from the channel or for the publication, you can get things wrong. And I personally would like to be a little later and accurate. I want to know that if they're listening, if I'm saying it, it's the truth, rather than push to be first. But that is not what many editors would want. They would want it first,
What makes a great journalist in 2026?
I think despite the changes in technology, despite digital media, despite YouTube, despite Insta, despite the many different ways people are receiving news, I think there are certain core values which have to be there. Honesty, integrity, the ability to listen, curiosity, wanting to know about the other person, a moral code, the ability to communicate well, the desire to make a positive difference, that the people you're reporting about are human beings. It's not just 20 people drowned. These are people with families, with loved ones. Empathy. You need that empathy. You need to know these are human beings there. The ability to communicate well, and many things. You should also not be arrogant. You should also have doubt. You should also check the facts. It's a whole mix of things, but I think these are qualities which don't depend on the media, which don't depend on satellites and cameras and phones. It's just qualities which a journalist should have.
Many people are losing their job in media industry. So what could be the reason?
Traditional media is really suffering a lot from the competition from digital. Digital may be less expensive to produce. In the old days when we used to go to cover a story in Mangalore, we take the OB van and the camera team and the taxis. It would cost maybe 40,000, 50,000 to just go and do a story from Mangalore. So people tried to save money. And one of the ways in which they saved was to make people multitask. The reporter would have their mobile phone, their digital phone and Mojo. They would shoot the story themselves. They would do their piece to camera themselves, which meant fewer camera people were needed. Then you would send the story to Delhi. We used to edit our stories in Bangalore, have a full edited story going. Then gradually, they would edit in Delhi. Fewer editors were needed. Now, very rarely do you see an edited story. You just see visuals. You don't, the old-fashioned edited story with a voiceover and a beginning, last shot, first shot, the way we used to present it, that is not there. So video editors are more just, they're not needed as much because they're just putting in the visuals that require. They're not crafting a beautiful story the way they needed to. With the anchors going live, and it's so easy now to go live from anywhere, you may need fewer reporters to actually go and get the inputs. So it's to save money. It's to make, I mean, they will tell you it's to make things leaner and faster and more efficient, but it's a money-saving thing.
Cost cutting.
Yes, cost cutting, the competition. Advertising is less on television. It's very hard. So in order to keep themselves profitable, layoffs happen, which is tragic very hard for the people who are laid off. But for the businesses, it's what we need to do to survive.
You spoke about mobile journalism. And in India, NDTV was the first channel to start the Mojo concept. How this thing started, and were you guys okay with this?
They talked to us about it and they said, we need you to be able to go live from anywhere. Otherwise, we would depend totally on, say, the camera person reaching us, the 3G unit or the OB van. And to go live from a place was very difficult. So then they sent us these Mojo phones. So it was just a tiny little box like this with a phone inside. And you could go live with it. You could literally, wherever, from here, I could do a live report, which transformed things hugely. It gave extra pressure because you needed to be able to go live. You need to understand the technology and get it going. As long as there was good signal, you should be able to do that. It was extra for the reporter to be able to shoot something and upload the visuals. And you were expected to be always available, always on. Like literally in the morning before leaving home, you could do a live report. So
from the car itself.
Yes, it extended things. It was great in the sense that it was more flexible. You could literally go live from anywhere. Like sometimes the OB van was so huge, you couldn't park in a certain place. So we'd have to run back to the OB van with the tape and uplink it from there. So this flexibility was there as long as you had good signal. The flexibility was there. It cut costs also. Like I've done whole shows with just the camera person, the Mojo phone and myself with guests. So it made things more flexible. It made things easier in some ways, but it also meant you were always on call. So we'd have that Mojo phone with us, and even off days or holidays, we would take it with us just in case, you know.
How do you see the future of mobile journalism in India, in abroad, across the world?
I think it is the future. It is the future because while big traditional media houses may still be able to afford a studio setup, lives, a full team of a reporter, producer, like the foreign channels had a producer also. I used to envy that because usually the camera person and the reporter in India had to do everything, contact the guest, make them set, whereas they have a producer as well who takes care of much of the logistics. So the bigger channels can still afford that. I think some channels in America or the United Kingdom, they'll still have a full team, but it's going to be less and less and less, especially in TV journalism, because TV journalism is facing too many challenges now. So it's shrinking. So that's the way it's going to go. So the mobile journalism, Mojos, make it easier, cheaper, faster. So that is the future, unless something new comes along where, you can put something on your thumb and then report it something. Anything's possible nowadays.
What advice would you like to give to the young reporters?
To stay true to yourselves and to join journalism for the right reasons. Many people join journalism to become TV journalists, I'm talking about, to become anchors, to get on camera, to report on camera so that they can tell their friends, did you see me? And then the neighbors say, I saw you yesterday. It's fun. I'm not saying it's not fun. It is fun to be recognized and all that, but that is not the point. The reason to join journalism is what it always has been. You want to tell stories that make the world better. You want to highlight injustice. You want to talk about deprivation. You want to hold authority to account, say, you can't do this. There's money which is being stolen. There are rules which are being broken. In some way, you want to make the world a better place. That is the core. You want to use your stories, your ability to tell stories, to make things better for other human beings and animals around you.
What are your thoughts on Gen Z in journalism?
Gen Z in journalism, well, we've just had a very dramatic series of Gen Z protests, which are still going on. I mean, and that has been a form of journalism.
Are you okay with the kind of behavior they did over there?
You know, nothing is perfect. Even when you're talking about a crime, you won't get a perfect victim who behaved perfectly. You won't get perfect protesters who will be, yes, please, thank you. Please, could you change this? You're not going to get perfect behavior. I am not a fan of bad language or vulgarity or abuse. People are different. I think these protests managed to get across a point, managed to make the supremely powerful look at it and think. I think initially it was like, it'll dissipate, it'll go away. They managed to get the attention with their perseverance, with their strength of power, and largely with the non-violence. They didn't riot, they didn't damage property, largely with that. Was it perfect? No. But was it 90% good? I think so. I think they did not. By and large, I think I think the things that they held up, the placards, I think they said were more funny. They may not have been funny for the people at the receiving end, but it was more humorous. There have been takes that, but they've used bad language and this and that. But the people who are accusing them of using bad language have hardly been examples of decency and good behavior and peaceful speech themselves. So yes, personally, I'd like things to be nice and calm and clean, but nothing is perfect. It is messy. Democracy is messy. And I think by and large, hats off to them for pulling it off.
How do you see Gen Z in journalism?
Gen Z in journalism, it's the same thing. They have the courage. They have the technical know-how. They can go live from anywhere. They're not scared. Where they will need to do their homework, they will need to, again, stick to the same thing, stick to wanting to know the other point of view. But they're there. They're really there. They're already there. I think what was happening on the protest ground was already journalism. When they're talking about what was happening, the videos that came out, or whatever police brutality or the crowds or the speeches, they're already in journalism. It's a new kind of journalism. It's a new world. And it's, again, as it was for the generations before. They have to have the right values. And with the right values, everything else will follow.
Is artificial intelligence a friend to journalism or a threat to journalism?
It's a reality, whether it's something negative or something positive. With my generation, I have my suspicions because I want people there everywhere. And we've seen some examples of where AI has gone terribly wrong in the news. Here in Karnataka as well, where it says, where it's done things and it's made stories really wrong. Or they put the wrong picture. And we've seen the mistakes happen. Yes. I would love to have a human at every stage. But it is a reality now. It makes things faster. And which is not good news for employees. It makes things cheaper by taking over the jobs of many. I think whether we like it or not, it is there. And it can be used. It can be a tool which is used for good. Whether you're researching something, whether you're looking at past things. But as in anything, one should not depend on it totally. It's used in writing now. It's used in... I feel so sad that people are not able to write much anymore because they may just cue in some prompts and get an AI version. So it's a mix, but it's a reality and we have to live with it now.
What's a message for the aspiring journalists who are watching this podcast?
Journalism is a wonderful profession. It's been absolutely marvelous. And if you're getting into journalism, just think of truth. Think of truth in what another person is saying, in what you are saying, how you're conveying it, and how you could make a difference. It's a marvelous thing. You can meet people from a different world, from a different background. You learn about things which you did not know before. It's a fabulous profession. You must enjoy it, but you must enjoy it with a sense of pride in what you're doing, with a sense of empathy for the other person, with honesty. And then you'll find that it's a really, really wonderful profession to be in. Journalism is great if it's done properly. So please do it properly.
Ma'am, now let's talk about this new book which is come in the market. Good News, Bad News. What made you to come up with this book? Good News, Bad News.
I realized that I was possibly literally the only person who had been there from that first batch of TV journalism, the first professionally, this was back in the 1980s, who joined Doordarshan. Then I joined private television, and I was there for a long time. And I was one of the very few people to have seen that entire curve as mostly a field reporter, from the Doordarshan days through private television to what it is now. And when I stepped back, when I had time and stepped back, I realized this was a real story there, the changes that had been there. People have written about the changes in TV news, they've spoken about it, but I was there, I was in the inside. So I wanted to tell the story from my perspective. It's a very personal book, from my perspective, but using my experience from what I saw around me. Yeah, I wanted to tell that story.
So when is the official launch of this book, and is Dr. Prannoy Roy coming for the inauguration?
We have, it's out. I mean, the book is available, it's out. On the 7th of August, Friday the 7th of August, at the Bangalore International Centre, we have a launch. I should be going to Delhi at a later stage, which I hope Prannoy is able to make it. But it's just been wonderful because good wishes have come in for it. And I do hope that it does well and people read it and enjoy it.
Okay, now because I've read this book, in your book, Good News, Bad News, chapter 9, Who Calls the Shot? You have written about Arnab as, you have written about Arnab Goswami. He's a star anchor. Do you think he's a star anchor?
He is a star anchor. A star anchor is somebody who gets attention, who gets viewers, who makes a difference in the understanding of the people he's listening to. You may not agree with him. I'm not saying that you may agree with everything he says, but he has a presence, and he was one of the first people to really have that kind of impact, one of the very first. And he has a huge following. He has people who really listen to what he says, who enjoy his style, and he's kept going. Like I said, the impact may not be something you like, but the impact is undeniable. And I think that makes him a star anchor. Like, I'm not, as you've seen in the book, I'm not saying that all star anchors are great or bad. You can have both, but I think the impact he has had, you cannot ignore him when you talk about television news in India.
In NDTV, did you have a chance to work with him?
I did. We had.
Did he start his career from NDTV or before?
I'm not sure about that, but he was with NDTV in the very early days. We had a program called Nationwide.
Nationwide, yeah.
Where we had Delhi anchors and we'd be reporters in the field. So he was very nice to work with, very pleasant to work with. You call up and ask. I remember we're doing something on the senior Bombay. So he called up to ask some background details and all that. He was very perfectly polite and perfectly pleasant.
Your book covers many important aspects of journalism. Was it difficult to fit all that in 14 chapters? Or do you have any plans to come up with second version?
As of now, this is it. Yes, it was very difficult because we're talking about 30 years, more than 30 years.
30 years in 14 chapters. Do you think it was...
It had to... A lot was said, but a lot had to be left out, because if I'm talking about 30 years, otherwise you'll have one kind of whole series of, So yes, it was difficult to know what to leave out, but I think it's also good because you then choose what has been the most important, what has been the most interesting, what has had the most impact on you. You have to edit it. You have to edit it down. You can't write everything. It was a challenge, though.
Ma'am, the one interesting part of the book, the cover page, you are a journalist. You're supposed to hold a mic. Why are you holding a camera?
Why I'm holding a camera here is I discussed this with the publisher and I said, I usually held a mic. Let's have a mic on the cover. They liked this picture because we're talking about a life in television and it is me looking. When you're reporting, you're maybe looking into the camera, but this is my observation. It is the way I'm observing the world around. And the camera is what brings the as you know yourself. It's the camera that brings television news to the viewer. The reporter is on frame, but it's the camera which shows this, you know. So I wanted something with a mic. So on the back cover, there's me holding a mic.
Yeah, it's there.
But because that is the usual thing. But they wanted this to show it's my looking at. Do you get what I mean? Like when you're reporting into the camera. But this was me looking. That was why they're very keen on that.
This picture?
This was Govind.
Oh.
We had gone on a shoot. We'd gone on a shoot to Save the Tiger project. That's why the forest. And he was showing me this fancy new camera which was being used. So I picked it up and then he's taken this.
Okay, my last question. Your message to NDTV. The NDTV under UPA government and NDTV after NDA government.
I want to make it clear that it's not as if curbs on the press or pressure came only with the NDA government. From, I think, the time journalism was started, governments have always wanted to have their say, their view. But I think in the last few years, there has been far more action taken against people who are not obviously pro-government. Whether it's legal authorities like the Income Tax Department, the Enforcement Directorate, the CBI, there's been a lot more pressure on companies or editors or journalists who have not toed the line. The Roys themselves, Prannoy and Radhika Roy, they had cases filed against them. They were not allowed to leave the country. The CBI has now dropped those cases. They haven't found anything which was... But as they say, the process is the punishment. They were put under severe pressure for a lot of time. Ads, NDTV didn't get government ads, which was a very large part of any television channel's input. Without government ads, without central government ads, the company financially was hit very badly. So you had the legal pressure, you had the financial pressure, and you had editorial pressure also, because in the early years, everybody would come and you'd have a political debate. You'd have people from different parties. But for many years, the BJP leaders did not come to talk on NDTV, which made it very difficult to have an editorial balance to a show. How can you have a political discussion if the ruling party is not there? Not in Karnataka. In Karnataka, we were very lucky that the BJP leaders would talk to me, from the chief minister, the ministers, they would talk to me. So very often it was the Karnataka BJP voice that was heard on NDTV because they would still talk to us. But these different ways of putting pressure it was very hard for NDTV to manage. It was a lot of pressure. And as we know, things had to change, and they did change.
So what's your future plan now? Any plans of you launching a YouTube channel the way how Ravish Kumar has done it?
I don't think so. I think I'm enjoying time after 36 years of running around full time and all those years in journalism where you're constantly checking your phone. I loved this. I loved the process of writing the book. I'd like to do more writing. And
you're also part of teaching.
Yes, I love engaging with the young students of journalism or even otherwise. I love talking to them and listening. Again, like I said, I love learning from them because it's a new world for them. They have a different approach. So I love learning the way they're getting news, what they think of as news. You talked about Gen Z news, the way they're learning. I love interacting with them and talking to them about the core values, which should also always be there. Whichever Gen Z, whether you're a boomer, ex-millennial or Gen Z, you have to have those core values. I love teaching as well. So a combination of that and also having time for myself, which is something I've not had for a long time. So.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Last thing, you want to say anything to your fellow journalists, your colleagues in Bangalore? Like, you had worked with the big team. You have Kumar, you have Govind, you have Nihal, then you had Darius.
Darius, yes.
And there was one more person, Alphonse.
Yes.
And Prannoy Roy.
It's just been fabulous. I mean, I have to thank people in the book also because, like I said, television journalism is a team thing. And one of the pictures, in fact, does show
the entire team.
All of us, the entire gang. I mean, whoever was there that day, the entire gang, talking of, just at the press club. These stories would not have been possible without the people in the team in Bangalore. Prannoy Roy, of course, and his wife Radhika Roy. They were the foundation of NDTV. And the people I worked with in Bangalore NDTV, it was just a different life. We talk about it very often. We get nostalgic very often. And it was just wonderful. We fought. We disagreed. We had, we would sulk. We would kind of, say, why is that person like this? I don't want to work. That was all there because we were all human beings. But it was such a team, and we just took it for granted then, but I don't think you can take it for granted now. So I have remembered them a lot. I have acknowledged them as well. My many colleagues, so many adventures and memories is what I've said, particularly the team at the Bengaluru Bureau office, located above a pub, to the amusement of many people.
Is it all?
Yes, we never went to that pub. All the correspondents who were part of the bureau over the years, because we had many come and go, the technical team, the video editors, the camera people, who were wonderfully supportive. And of course, Lata, our front office Lata, who was a lovely, lovely person, Lucy and Lata. I mean, there were so many over the years. We were a big office, which gradually shrank. But the team in Delhi and the team in Bengaluru really made everything possible.
Thank you very much for giving your precious time, ma'am.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.